Part 37 takes one last swipe at the Jesuits, and it begins with a spin on the fact that the Jesuits are education-minded. Of course, this is only a problem if you're already convinced that the Jesuits are up to no good, which, as we've seen, Fairley has a hard time proving. If you're not already convinced they're bad guys, their emphasis on education is admirable. So let's get to some specific claims. That's quite a charge, but as usual, we seem to be missing credible documentation. In this case, Fairley uses a source called Mystery of Babylon the Great by one I.A. Sadler, who isn't a credible scholar. Sadler in turn cites as his source for this information a work titled Jesuit Plots from Elizabethan to Modern Times by someone named A. Close. That in turn claims to have as its source old state papers and recently discovered Vatican documents. Talk about a reliable chain of custody. Close does give us a little more information about this alleged 1568 event. The Jesuit in question was supposed to be named Thomas Heath, and he had supposedly preached at the Rochester Cathedral. Close gives the text of these secret instructions and also discusses how a Catholic scholar, T.E. Bridget, claimed that the instructions were a forgery. And then supposedly another scholar named E.W. Bullinger decided Bridget was wrong. And Close's publishers challenged the Catholics to come by the British Museum to prove that these orders were forged. And they say the Catholics never showed up. Well, frankly, I might not show up either for the sake of dignifying a nutcase. This is an interesting story about Heath, and it's been around in some form since at least 1752. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it's taken seriously by any reliable historical source. Nor are those secret instructions. In fact, there's a really bad smell attached to them because while Close says they were carried around by Heath, yet another source, an 1800s magazine called The Churchman, gives the same instructions and says that they were being carried around by a messenger between the Jesuits of Paris and the Council of Trent. And the name of this messenger was, I'm not making this up, Ludovic de Freak. I think all of this was just made up. And that was also the conclusion of the scholar named Bridget, who in 1891 wrote a book called Blunders and Forgeries. He made the following points. So we might ask, how did Bullinger counter and prove conclusively that Bridget was wrong? Unfortunately, Close doesn't tell us, but he assures us that Bridget is a blunderer. And that's as far as I can check on this he said, she said routine, since the edition of the book edited by Bullinger is only available in 5 libraries in the country, none closer to me than 500 miles away. But it seems pretty clear that modern historians don't take this story of Heath seriously. You certainly won't find it in sources like this one by a credentialed historian. What you will find, though, is a thorough rejection and debunking of claims like another one Fairley copies, that Jesuits tried to kill Queen Elizabeth I. Nor does Wright mention any involvement with the Jesuits trying to blow up the British Parliament building. In light of this, it's rather ironic that Fairley says the following. As we've seen, hard and fast evidence is something he's been short on all along. Moving from England to the rest of Europe, many of Fairley's charges are too vague to investigate. We'll restrict ourselves to certain specifics. Were the Jesuits involved in the assassinations of Kings Henry III and IV in France? Wright, the serious historian, says no. In fact, Wright doesn't say the Jesuits assassinated any of the people Fairley lists. Well, let's do this. Let's check some more reputable scholarly biographies of the people named to see whether they say Jesuits killed or tried to kill them, or were somehow involved in their lives. In conclusion, let me say a few words about these conspiracy theories about the Jesuits. I'm glad to say Fairley isn't so far out there that he buys into the idea that even Lincoln was assassinated by the Jesuits. At least not that he says so. But Fairley may ask, if the Jesuits were so innocent, why were they suppressed the way they were so often? It's true the Jesuits have been suppressed more than a few times and thrown out of more than a few places. Why? Well, the answer is right in Fairley's mirror. It's because suspicious people like Fairley spread misinformation and fear, and believe the misinformation they spread uncritically. It's not an unfamiliar problem. It's called scapegoating. The Jews experienced it in Nazi Germany. Everything that went wrong in the Weimar Republic before Hitler ended up being blamed on Jews, even though they were much less than 1% of the German population. The early Christians experienced scapegoating under Rome, too. The scapegoating of the Jesuits is just more of the same. The Jesuits make good scapegoats for a lot of people because they're known for being intellectuals and teachers with a missionary bent. They strongly believe in the things they believe and do, which makes many people fear them all the more. That's inevitably what happens when you believe websites like oneevil.org instead of credentialed scholars, and when you spread around the bad information you get from those websites too. This vid gets a rating of 1/4 tank.